few days later, Shwelina was on the front page of the newspapers. She thought to herself, "With this article, my existence will be known to the world." The story of how she had helped make the orbs, without mentioning her spiritual powers, had suddenly made her a genius grand princess, and with the Duke's efforts to resolve the situation being highlighted, at least within the Grand Duchy, she heard that her family's image was improving compared to before. Shwelina asked her maids to make her look very cute. Meanwhile, at the royal palace, Shwelina's biological father, after hearing the news that the Grand Duke had caught the Empress's spy, discreetly sent people to investigate why the Empress had sent a spy to the Grand Duchy. The first report he received was that the spy had visited an orphanage that only raised girls. After learning about the rumors of a 6-year-old girl who had been adopted by the Grand Duke's family, a girl who had come from the orphanage the spy visited, the Emperor couldn't wait any longer. He headed straight to the duchy. Back at the duchy, Shwelina and the Duke went out together. The Duke was holding her as they entered a shop filled with candies. Shwelina pointed to a mint-flavored candy, thinking that since it wasn't too sweet, the Duke would like it. The Duke tried it, and, much to her delight, enjoyed it. Shwelina bought all the mint-flavored candies and asked for them to be separated into different boxes. Outside the shop, Shwelina thanked the Duke for everything and gave him a box of candy as a gift. While handing him the box, someone bumped into her, causing the box to fall. When she turned around to see who it was, she froze, staring at a man she didn't recognize, yet for some reason, she couldn't move. She didn't know that the man standing before her was her biological father. The Duke quickly picked up the box and exchanged words with the man, who turned out to be the Emperor. The Emperor thought to himself that it would be easy to take Shwelina back from the cold and distant Duke of Velo. But the Duke didn't hesitate and firmly stated, "Shwelina is my daughter." The Emperor, shocked by his words, thought, did he know that Shwelina has royal blood? Even knowing that, he still acts like this? Are you saying you won't return the child? Then he said aloud, "The child is a princess. She has royal blood." With a harsh tone, the Duke responded, "Then why did you let her live in misery until now? For 6 years you didn't find her. You couldn't even protect her. Are you now claiming parental rights over the child?" Without waiting for the Emperor to reply, the Duke picked up the box, went back to Shwelina, and said, "Shoo, my daughter, I'll buy you something else. Let's go." The Emperor watched from a distance, observing how happy Shwelina was with the Duke. He grew angrier, thinking, "My child is still alive, yet she is not happy in my arms, but in the arms of the Duke. How dare they testify that a living child had died? Even Shwelina's mother's doctor lied. However, if all of this is in collusion with the Empress, I will find her and kill her. After all these years, I have finally met the child I have been looking for. I will definitely get my child back." Back at the royal palace, Shwelina's stepsister, Princess Azela, was holding a party. She was annoyed by the fact that her mother and father had gone out that day. She thought it would have been nice if her brother had been there because they would have received compliments for their perfect sister-brother relationship. Azela considered what to do in the future if a new child appeared after hearing about her mother and father's edict. Though it's unfair and sad, I have to get along well with her. People say commoners are usually greedy and have low intelligence. As a kind and elegant princess, I have no choice but to take care of her, she thought. To entertain her guests, she showed them a trick. A maid brought a small bird, and using Shwelina's spiritual powers, Azela made the bird sing. After that, she sent the bird to a girl in the crowd, and then the bird returned to her. Azela asked her guests, "Has anyone heard of the person my mother and father have been looking for these days?" A boy in the crowd eagerly replied, "Yes, a new royal who manifested spirit power was discovered, right? This is great excitement for the empire." Azela thought, "He didn't understand my intention. What should I do with him?" She then walked around him, intentionally bumping into him and causing him to spill the juice he was holding. She continued, "How strange. Suddenly, a member of the royal family whose origin is unknown appears." She gave a sly smile before adding, Judging by the fact that they haven't shown up until now, they probably aren't noble, right? A royal member who has grown up with commoners. It's pitiful. When they come to the castle, I will keep them close to me and cherish them. In her mind, she continued thinking, a collateral royal family member who grew up as a commoner without knowing their history. A child who may be an illegitimate child, born as a result of a deviation from the royal family. I cannot accept that a child like that could be put on the same level as me. In the end, that child is just a commoner who is no different from a scoundrel. She smiled at her guests and said, they must have grown up in poverty, so I want to meet them and help them. Everyone in the crowd praised her for being so kind and truly an angel. But in her head, Azella thought, even if that child comes to the imperial castle in the future, everyone will unconsciously think she's a commoner princess who is taken care of by me. Back at the Duke's mansion, Shualina told Nina that she wanted to go to the library room. She explained that she wanted to study the history of the Grand Duchy. Shualina thought to herself, according to the novel, the Empress and Azella will commit more evil deeds in the future, and they will raise their status by coming forward themselves. My biggest advantage is that I know the future. If I use this advantage to prevent their evil deeds, Azella and the Empress will have no chance to build a positive image, and the Duke will naturally improve his reputation. She also remembered that the next event in the story would take place in the Forest of Monsters, so she needed to gather information about it. Nina guided her to the library room, poured her some tea, and brought cookies. Shualina told Nina that she would be reading for a while, and that she could go attend to other matters or rest if she wanted, but to return before dinner. After Nina left, Shualina started looking for books about the Forest of Monsters. Suddenly, a spirit, who had a human form and had helped Shualina before, pushed a book off the shelf. When Shualina checked, she saw the spirit for a brief moment before it disappeared. She looked at the book the spirit had pushed and realized it was exactly what she had been searching for. She started reading about how monsters appeared, how they couldn't leave the forest, and how every year at the end of the year, a subjugation was held. In the novel, the Empress had orchestrated an event where, after the subjugation, a new wave of monsters appeared. No one had expected this, and the damage was much worse because of it. Shualina knew she was the only one who knew how the monsters would look and realized she needed to do something about it. When she finished reading, Fran was waiting for her at the door. Shualina asked Fran to call Brother Windy and requested him to bring information on the tower's mages. Windy soon returned with all the information he had gathered from the guild about the tower's mages and asked Shualina, "Is this because of the teacher?" Shualina responded, "Yes. The teacher was captured, but the mastermind is a royal, so we can't touch them. The Empress spread poison in the Grand Duchy. Since she knows I'm here, she might try something else, and she's using mages as her messengers, so I had to check just in case." Windy was concerned about Shualina's determination. He remembered the day the teacher was captured, how Shualina was too action-driven. He feared that if something dangerous happened again in the future, she would try to handle it herself. Because of these thoughts, he told her, "Shushu, if this isn't just a matter of curiosity for your studies but something more serious, I'd prefer if you stayed out of dangerous affairs. It's fine to take an interest, but taking action yourself is unacceptable. Me and Father will protect you." "But it's my responsibility too," Shualina tried to argue. Windy gently replied, "I understand, but if you get hurt, your family will be devastated. If anything happens, please tell me. We are family, and protecting you is what matters most. You understand, right?" Shualina reluctantly agreed. "Yes." After their conversation, Shualina sat down to read the report. The White Tower was part of the Empress's faction, and the White Tower mages specialized in healing magic. She wondered, what business could they have in the Grand Duchy? Given the timing, she guessed that the Empress must have sent them to create monsters in the Forest of Monsters. Shualina realized that, according to the book she had read in the library, when mana accumulates, plants and animals transform into monsters. However, There wouldn't have been enough time to create monsters after the subjugation, and attempting to create them during the subjugation would be too risky. They must have slowly advanced the transformation to ensure the monsters were completed after the subjugation. She began to debate whether or not she should tell her father. She wondered, would father even let me go to the forest? If not, how would I sneak out? But then she remembered her promise to Windy not to do dangerous things anymore. At that moment, Nina returned and said, "Moments ago, you were studying in the library, and now you're at your desk again. Studying is good, but don't push yourself too hard." Nina's words gave Shualina an idea. If I say I want to go to the forest to study, maybe they would let me go. She quickly made some plans and asked Nina to bring a few things. Later that evening, when they were all eating dinner, Shualina suddenly stopped eating and said, "I'm full." She then added, "I have something to ask you all." She took out the invitations she had prepared and asked, "Do you want to celebrate my birthday with me on January 1st? Everyone was delighted and had their own thoughts about the celebration. Shualina continued, "I haven't been part of the Grand Duchy for long, so I want to study the history of our family. After all, history is the root of the Grand Duchy. So I'd love for us to go on a trip together to the forest." Immediately everyone exclaimed, "No, that's too dangerous." But Shualina calmly asked them to settle down, assuring them that they would only visit the entrance to the forest and that everyone would be with her, so it would be safe. She made some adorable puppy eyes and begged the Duke. The Duke, who had raised only sons, had no immunity to his daughter's cuteness and affection. Since he had never experienced this before, he quickly gave in, as Shualina expected. He allowed her to go, but with the condition that she would stay by his side throughout the entire trip. Later, everyone set off for the forest. Windy teased Shualina, saying, "So, Shushu, it's not as impressive as you thought, right?" As they walked, a large cat suddenly jumped on Shualina and began licking her. Windy quickly grabbed the cat and held it, but the Duke rushed over and asked Shualina if she was okay. She assured him she was fine, explaining, "The cat didn't have any intention of attacking me." The Duke, concerned, replied, "But if it keeps licking you with that rough tongue, your skin will get hurt." The cat managed to escape Windy's hold and began licking Shualina again. This time, she felt something strange inside the cat, a mix of spiritual powers and mana. The Duke took the cat off of her again, and Shualina asked, "Is it possible for someone to have both spiritual powers and mana?" The Duke responded, "No. If someone had both, they would die soon." Shualina, sensing the mana inside the cat's heart, surrounded it with spiritual powers. She realized that this cat, much like herself, was being exploited for someone else's benefit, so she tried to remove the spiritual powers from it. However, she couldn't completely remove them. Instead, she realized she could lock the powers by creating a ribbon around the cat's neck. As she did so, the cat shrank back to its small size. Shualina then said to the Duke, "I sensed the spiritual powers inside this cat. Its spiritual power is quite similar to mine, but slightly different." The Duke, alarmed, said, "Perhaps the culprit is still around here." Just then, some knights appeared from the shadows, having been hiding all along. The Duke ordered them to find the culprit. Shualina, still holding the cat, asked it, "Do you know where the culprit is?" The cat led them to the mage responsible. When the mage saw them, he tried to run, but Shualina, using her spiritual powers, created a net to catch her. The Duke praised Shualina for catching the mage and said, "I will give you a reward." Then, with a villainous look on his face, he turned to Windy and instructed, "Keep an eye on Dellen." He then continued, "Now, I'll show everyone how to deal with someone who dares to do something suspicious in my territory." Shualina thought to herself, "How could a kind family like mine be called villains?" But when she saw the Duke's menacing expression, she thought again, "That's definitely a villain. I have a change of impression." She then asked the Duke for her reward. The Duke asked, "What should I do? Should I destroy the magic tower so that it can never harm you again? If we hang this person's head, it would be a perfect declaration of war." Schwalina replied, No, no, but I don't plan on forgiving this person. And she whispered something in the Duke's ear. The Duke nodded in agreement with her plan. Later, the Duke visited the mage in prison. He asked, The person who gave you this job contacts you every week? The mage responded, That's right. About 2 weeks before New Year's, only once. The Duke asked who had ordered the mage, and the mage confessed, It was the elder of the magic tower who ordered me. The Duke thought to himself, It must have been planned by the Empress, the real owner of the magic tower. But without solid evidence, it's still too early to bring the Empress to court. He then gave the mage a command. When there's contact, tell them that things are going well. Your job is to reassure them. As the Duke left the prison, he instructed a guard, When the wizard contacts the magic tower, hang him at the device my daughter has set. The smell of blood and secretions will spread via the winds. The monsters that usually scatter in all directions will smell it and come rushing in that direction. The Duke thought for a moment and added, Thanks to Shushu, the subjugation has become easier than usual, so I don't need to be there this time, right? The guard agreed, and the Duke continued. Our Shushu's birthday is on January 1st. I've decided to be with her on her first birthday. After that, we see Schwalina with her brothers in the garden, thinking of a name for the cat. The Duke came and sat down with them. Schwalina told him they were naming the cat and asked if he had any ideas. He suggested, Meow, because the cat meowed. Schwalina then asked, Can we keep Meow? The Duke smiled and said, All right, you can keep him. Schwalina whispered to it, I will protect you until the end. Then she hugged the Duke and thought to herself, I will protect everyone,